Lisa Nandy has been accused of misleading Parliament over the reasons that West Midlands police banned Maccabi Tel Aviv players from attending a match with Aston Villa in Birmingham last week. This is what Lisa Nandy said in Parliament last month.
What is completely different about this case is not just that it's the first time since the early 2000s in this country that a decision has been taken to ban entirely away fans from attending a game. It's that the risk assessment is based in no small part on the risk posed to those fans that are attending who support Maccabi Tel Aviv because they are Israeli and because they are Jewish. Now, we should be appalled by that and never allow it to stand.
Now, that was directly contradicted by West Midlands police last week.
I'm aware there's a lot of commentary around the threat to the fans being the reason for the decision. To be clear, that was not the primary driver. That was a consideration. We have intelligence and information that says that there is a section of Maccabi fans, not all Maccabi fans, but a section of them who engage in quite significant levels of hooliganism. What is probably quite unique in these circumstances is whereas often hooligans will clash with other hooligans and it will be contained within the football fan base. We've had examples where a section of Maccabi fans were targeting people not involved in football matches, and certainly we had an incident in Amsterdam last year which has informed some of our decision making. So it is exclusively a decision we made on the basis of the behaviour of a subsection of Maccabi fans, but all the reaction that could occur obviously form part of that as well.
Exclusively made on the basis of the behaviour of a subsection of Maccabi fans. So you got, on the one hand, Lisa Nandy saying something quite different and very invidious to Parliament, and then you've got the police, you heard it there from the horse's mouth, exclusively on the basis of that behaviour by a subsection of the fans. Who's telling the truth? On LBC, Lewis Goodall pressed Nandy on those claims.
You told the House of Commons that that decision was based in no small part on the risk based to those fans that are attending to support Maccabi Tel Aviv because they are Israeli and because they are Jewish. West Midlands Police told Parliament this week and Sky News this week that that was not the reason, that the reason was because of the hooliganism of those fans. Would you like to apologise to West Midlands Police?
No, but I would like to commend West Midlands Police for the policing operation that saw hundreds of officers deployed onto the streets with care and sensitivity. But I want to be really clear with you on this point, Lewis. I, of course, as you would expect, requested the advice from West Midlands Police to the Safety Advisory Group who make the ultimate decision on this before we took any decisions around it. That advice was crystal clear that there were a number of factors that went into the decision that West Midlands Police, the recommendation that they put forward that away fans should be banned. That was based on an assessment of risk that included an element of hooliganism amongst the away fans, but it was absolutely crystal clear that the risk to the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans was high.
Sorry, Culture Secretary. Chief Superintendent Tom Joyce told Sky News, "We are simply trying to make decisions based on community safety driven by the intelligence that was available to us and our assessment of the risk that was coming from admitting travelling fans." They have been clear this week that the primary driver around this was about the threat posed by those fans. And you said it was about anti-Semitism. That was wrong, wasn't it?
It was not wrong. And I'm telling you, Lewis, that I have read that report from West Midlands Police to the Safety Advisory Committee who make the decision. And that report was absolutely crystal clear that although there were a number of factors that went into their recommendation to ban away fans, the high risk that they identified was to those fans themselves. That was not just on the basis that they were Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. It was because it was an Israeli team, and it's because many of those supporters were Jewish.
Now, not only is Lisa Nandy calling the West Midlands Police liars, as well as accusing them and local Birmingham communities, by the way, of being anti-Semitic, she's also treating us all like mugs, frankly. The full intelligence report behind the ban has now been leaked to Birmingham Live, who reported this. The 8-page internal report leaked to Birmingham Live revealed that a high risk of disorder triggered by hundreds of fighting experienced hooligans linked to the Israeli club, some with IDF links, was the key reason for the ban. Ash, help me out here. Why is the government willing to die in a ditch to defend people that walk around shouting death to Arabs.
Kieran, you don't understand. This government is committed to upholding law and order, cracking down on antisocial behaviour and other forms of crime, whether it's petty or it's violent. And so that means what you have to do is allow Israeli football hooligans to terrorize local communities, racially abuse who they want, tear down whatever flags they want. Do you see the logic here? I mean, look, this only looks like a contradiction if you have failed to, I think, really grapple with the precise role that weaponized anti-Semitism has played in UK politics and increasingly politics across much of the global north. The role that this has played is to sort of say anything that you do, which is either critical of Israel, critical of Israelis, or in any way antithetical to Israeli interests, that will be called anti-Semitic. And it becomes a disciplining tool. It's a disciplining tool for political possibility. So this is something which left-wing candidates have to contend with, even if they themselves are Jewish, like Zach Polanski. So it's not just Muslim candidates like, Zoran Mamdani or Zara Sultana who have to deal with it. Even Jewish candidates have to deal with it themselves. So it becomes a way to sort of close down that Overton window in such a way as to exclude the left. But it also becomes something which, the centre-left and centre-right governments are scared of. And that is because, unfortunately, there is a whole system of interlinked organizations, many of whom have, the word anti-Semitism in the name. But most of the time, what they're doing isn't talking about anti-Semitism. What they're instead doing is presenting anything which is, hostile or even merely just not facilitating Israeli interests as anti-Semitism. I mean, it's the wonderful thing about an organization like Campaign Against Anti-Semitism is that they spend so much time talking about Israel. Not very much time thinking about the safety of, Jewish communities across this country, an awful lot of time talking about Israel. And it's such an effective disciplining tool that it becomes fully internalized, I think, fully internalized. And whether that's something that happens because there's sort of political affinity between Labour politicians and the project of Israeli imperialism, or whether it's just because of political convenience and wanting to take the path of least resistance, they internalize that disciplining force. And that's how you end up in such an absurd place where effectively you've got, the Labour government line and much of the mainstream media saying, unless you let Israeli football hooligans terrorize the city of Birmingham, you're anti-Semitic. It's really one of my favorite news stories of the entire year, Kieran. I'm so glad I got to talk about it again. Every time I think about it, I can feel this, rush of cortisol and adrenaline surging through my body. It really does make me feel alive.
Yeah, because it's not only the theatre of the absurd in itself, but it also, I know that we're both very fond of our national sport. And just looking at it very briefly as a final thought on this, through a kind of football lens rather than a sort of sociological lens, obviously they're interlinked, but you know what I mean? Football in racism is still a very big problem in this country, but it used to be absolutely epidemic on the terraces and up and down the country. I go to a lot of football matches, and there are of course pockets of racism still in stadiums. But one thing I will say is that it's something very dramatic has shifted. And that is because of successive campaigns that, if you are caught saying something racist in a football stadium these days, you'll know this, Ash, the overwhelming likelihood is that you're going to be banned for life from the football stadium. And of course, that doesn't always happen. And as I say, there's still a lot of racism. And I suspect the lower down the leagues you go, the more people get away with it. But certainly in the Premier League, it's very, very seriously treated now. Suffice to say that shouting death to Arabs would not meet the criteria of entering a football stadium in the modern world, thank God.